My name is Josh Levine. I am an educator, author, and consultant in the space of culture design. I help organizations understand what culture is and how to better actually architect their own organization in order to deliver on a higher performing culture. A lot of people will think about or define culture as the norms and behaviors of an organization, or what people do, what employees do when they're not, when the manager or the boss isn't in the room. And I think those aren't wrong, but I don't feel that they're helpful. So my definition of culture is actually the cause and effect of every decision that an employee makes. So the cause and effect of every decision. And the reason why I describe it in that way is to reinforce the concept that culture is in fact everywhere. It's not just the values on the wall. It informs everything that we do. And the output, the reason that we're talking about culture is decisions. It's all about behaviors. And so that is why I'm pointing my definition in that direction. Right? What are the decisions that we're making? There's actually two states to consider when you are trying to become self-aware and improve your culture, right? What is and what could be. And the gap between the two is really where I try to help my clients and community get across. So how do you define what is? What is really is about understanding what works and what doesn't work. So when you think about what behaviors are actually helping move this organization towards its purpose, what behaviors, what are examples of moments when an employee made a great decision that actually moved, that supported the bottom line, that supported what you're trying to do within your group or within your organization or within your company. The other part is the don'ts, what you don't want. So identify those as well. When did your organization or group fail? What was that moment and why? What caused that? And so by digging into those two pieces, you can understand better what it is, what behaviors you're looking for, and what behaviors you want to actually mitigate. So that's how I go about thinking about measuring. Now, we can apply any sort of rubric that we want on top of those ideas. How many of these, how close to this are we going to, like, as we say, we want more of this, how do you measure more of these behaviors? I want less of this, how do you actually realize and say that, okay, that was an example of what we don't want. And you can actually apply numbers to those, instances to those behaviors and outcomes. So it's a matter of, you can choose whatever you'd like to actually think about your progress, how you're moving from this point to what you want to get to. I consider them the components of culture. And the way that I got to, let me give you a little background, the way that I got to understand that the components were really important to think about was exactly where we had started this conversation, which is, how do you define it? Well, no matter how we define it, none of those definitions actually help anyone do anything about it. And so I worked with some of my colleagues who were just as interested in culture as I was to think about what were the pieces and parts. So how do we dig into this? And what we came up with are 6 components of culture. And this is how the book is organized: purpose, values, and behaviors, recognition, rituals, and cues. Okay. So the first 3, purpose, values, and behaviors, are actually the design piece of the puzzle. When I talk about culture design or designing a culture, you are laying out your vision for what you want your culture to be. We talked about what it is and what we want it to be. So purpose, why do you exist in the world? Values, what are the guardrails, behavioral guardrails that are going to get you to that purpose? And behaviors, right? That's the center point. We discussed that, where the output, the reason why we're talking about culture is because of behaviors. So those are the first three. The second three: recognition, rituals, and cues. So recognition, as any good manager understands, rewards and recognition are actually how one can create an environment, an ecosystem that incentivizes a certain kind of behavior and another. So recognition and rewards. Now there's some very base versions of that and very evolved versions of that, which we can get into if you want. So there's a lot of ways to actually get through rewards and recognition. I think most organizations, my personal point of view, is they're not doing it incredibly well. But that's how we actually reward the values-driven behaviors that we want. Rituals are how we build and strengthen what I call the synapses of culture, and those are relationships. So rituals are those examples of connecting between humans so that we can actually establish a better working relationship. The biggest problem that I've observed in the new reality of the pandemic, distributed workforces, working from home, which was coming anyways, is the degradation of relationships. And that is going to be one of the big challenges that we're going to see. So it's all about digging into those rituals to strengthen it, build and strengthen those relationships. And finally, our cues. Cues are actually establishing or reestablishing why we're here in the first place. So the problem with business, with just doing your day-to-day business, is that you forget, you don't keep in front of you all the time, like, my purpose, my grand vision statement about why I have quarterly reports to run. I've got emails to answer. I've got to deal with, onboarding someone, all this day-to-day stuff. So what you need are cues to help employees anchor in and remember, what is my purpose? What are the values? Why are we doing this in the first place? What is our culture? And that brings us right back to the top of the 6 components. In the past 10 years that I've been studying culture, I've realized that it is actually the only sustainable competitive advantage in business today, because it's the only thing that can't be copied and can't be stolen. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be. Everyone's culture is unique. You can go and read the best case study in the world from your Zappos or your Toyotas or whatever it might be, and say, I want that kind of culture. But you can't. It's just not going to work for you. You can learn things from it, but it's not going to work for you. And so it's highly individuated. It's highly unique. Everything else, when we talk about competitive advantages, we're talking about quality assurance, we're talking about efficiency, we're talking about algorithms, we're talking about intellectual property. All those things, as business is speeding up, are becoming less and less differentiated. They are elements of the business. Even when we think about innovation and design, those things are, I watch the market and those things are copied time and time and time again. How does Apple continue to lead when everybody else is adding colors to their digital, their phones or their digital products? How does Spotify actually continue to lead when everybody else is trying to copy their tactics and their strategies? The answer I would offer is culture. Culture is how people work together. So even if your most talented person is stolen, your culture will continue to exist, right? If they jump ship, and this is the latest example, right? So it's the war for culture, the war for talent. That is what has been the watchword where I am, right north of Silicon Valley, of you got to get the best people, the smartest people, the brightest people, and that's what Google's been doing, and that's what Apple's trying to do, and that's what Facebook's trying to do, the best talent. But the truth is that talent isn't going to stick around. So how do you create an ecosystem that's someone you can bring people into and they actually get the best out of them? And so to me, that's culture. That's when you actually have So the ways, the understanding of how you work, what your expectations are, what are your values, so that you can actually continue to produce amazing work throughout the life cycle of a product or a service or multiple cycles. Everything else can be stolen and can be copied. Culture cannot. Everybody is disrupting. It feels like everybody's disrupting or being disrupted. And so when we're talking about disruption, we are talking about changes and change. And culture was once, when you think about, so if we go back 10, 20 years, something would change in the market, and the CEO would say, all right, we need to reorg, or we need to think about introducing a new product to stay competitive, or restructure, something like that. And they said, we're going to have a culture change initiative. It's coming down the road. Here it comes. You bring in a big consultancy, you reorg, you culture change, set the new priorities, and then boom, you're done. Most people are still there. Some people left. Some people are reorganized, and culture change is over. But now things are moving so quickly, and this is where I think your question is coming from. Things are moving so quickly that culture change is no longer just a moment in time. It's now a constant. It's happening all the time. If you want to stay competitive, if you want to not even lead the market, but just even tread water, you need to be thinking about changing all the time. And that's why you're starting to hear and see, and people they're tired of, they have a lot of change fatigue, right? They're tired of saying, this is a new thing, this is happening, reorg, restructure. I've noted a precipitous rise in that kind of discussion within organizations. And the reason is because things are moving too quickly to stay in one place. And so what an organization needs to do when we're thinking about what is the responsibility of the organization, what role does culture play when we're thinking about disruption? And not even disruption, not even like crazy innovation. We're just saying we got to change to stay ahead. We have to teach, we have to incentivize, we have to prioritize the ability to try and experiment new things, new processes, new ways of working. Maybe someone no longer sits in a team. Maybe you're part of multiple teams because your skills are needed in different ways. Is that going to work with your culture? How do you actually create a framework, values, and behaviors that are incentivized by managers and leaders to say, hey, yes, this person can go work on this project. Or yes, you're allowed to experiment and do something new. Or yes, you actually can, you can tell leadership about an observation you made that maybe might help the organization. So no longer is it going to be a top-down, industrial era management style. And that's what we need to learn as organizations, is how to self-manage is a term that's actually out there. How do you empower people to live and work to their best of their ability? And so when I zoom out and I think about the reason culture exists, the reason why I got into culture is because done well, it enables people to say, I can actually step forward and do my best, as opposed to just being a piece of a machine in a slot. Just sit down, type your, do your emails, do the thing, crank out the widgets. That's not what we need anymore. And so we have to really think about agility, we have to think about change, and we have to think about organizing our system in a way that is not only just able to change a lot, but is like the essence of the organization is change. It has to be organized that way. And culture is going to be an organizing principle. It's a structure, it's a cognitive structure that people can understand. Okay, this is how we do things around here, right? We talked about that definition. This is what's important. It is okay to experiment and fail. It is okay that you're not the most efficient, because we have to be able to experiment. We have to be able to try new things. We have to be able to experiment with processes to deliver at the end of the day, to be able to keep up with our competitors and possibly even win the market. So one client I've noticed, and I've worked with them for years, is they are incredibly agile, if I can use that term, if it's not overused, because everyone is deeply involved and their voices are all heard. Everybody, they really matter. And it slows projects down, the ones that I've worked on. And I know that it's across the organization because everybody gets there. If you put it in a negative way, everybody gets their fingers, in the pot. And you have to make sure everybody's informed and it can change and people have opinions. And it's a pain in the butt. However, what it does is enables them to react in an incredibly fast manner when something changes. And they do it in a way that they're not ever confined to their role. They're expected to be involved. They're expected to voice their opinions. So I would say that is one example of a really, and it's not going to work for everybody, but it's really amazing to see the benefit of almost inefficiency at work and the value of that, right? So it's not going to work for everybody, but there's a lot of success that actually comes from that structure. So I love that. Another example is another tech client that we work with here in the Bay Area. They have a CEO who is incredibly empathetic. And that really supports it incentivizes empathy in everyone else. So it's not so much that it's a great CEO. A great CEO is amazing to have. A great leader, you can't substitute anything for great leadership. She's an incredible leader. But here, the organization has learned and continues to learn, because they're not perfect, empathy for colleagues. As a matter of fact, when we worked with them to help define or redefine their values, one of their values is that we discovered together, bring yourself. And it's about showing up, but it's also about listening. It's about connecting with other people, not being distracted, right? Not being on your phone in meetings. And the other one that works in the same way, there's a second that's run together. And that's amazing that we were able to uncover those two of the 5 values in that way. It's not like we made them up, but we uncovered them. It's one of these, this is what we do well. And what I realized through this work is it traced back all the way to the CEO. And it was the CEO who constantly demonstrates this and cares about the people. And people feel seen and heard. And that, I think, makes all the difference, because these employees are so committed to the CEO, they will follow her anywhere. And that to me is an incredible tool, powerful tool, and one that she's modeling. And that's what I love about the success of that organization. That's what their secret sauce, if I had to boil it down, that's what their secrets would be. The future of culture is not just about employees, because the future of companies isn't just about employees. As a matter of fact, you can think, what is an employee? we're having this conversation in California about Lyft and Uber drivers. Are they contractors? Are they employees? We also have Airbnb hosts. Are they customers? Are they employees? I don't think we're going to see the end of this blurring of lines anytime soon. And I would argue it is incredibly beneficial for organizations to start thinking about not customers and employees, but their communities inside and outside. And if we think about or redefine how the ecosystem of a company works as far in terms of community, then we need to reconsider culture and how to foster the behaviors that we want. It's not going to be just about the people who get a paycheck. We want to incentivize a certain kind of behavior. We're going to see the leading brands in the future wrap their arms around a larger population and say, how can we help? How can we bring you closer in order to help us all achieve this particular goal, this purpose that we're all striving for? How can we help you do something better? How can you help us do something better? And that means we need to think about the culture of the community. And you can start to see this and think about this. The example that I've written about is Burning Man, which is a very, very Californian thing to cite, I realize. But Burning Man, there's maybe 50 employees, but it's thousands, tens of thousands of people, and they're the ones that actually make this thing go. We're going to see organizations like that, even the biggest, most, straight ahead enterprises embrace a larger community. And so that means we need to think about the culture of this larger community.